When she set foot on the Owaiki Beach in Hawaii, Margaret felt transported to paradise. Calm, crystal-clear seas lapped long stretches of smooth, golden sands. The leaves of the palm trees made complex patterns against the turquoise sky as they waved lazily. The pleasant aroma of tropical flowers permeated the air, while ukuleles playing in the distance contributed to the beautiful ambiance. This little piece of heaven was bathed in a magnificent glow, as the sun painted the horizon in shades of orange and pink. This was the evergreen beauty of Owaiki Beach. Margaret Brown was a spirited 21-year-old surfer who had always been drawn to the thrill of riding the waves. Surfing was more than just a pastime to her growing up on Hawaii's scenic coastline. It was a way of life. At Owaiki Beach, a destination renowned for its beautiful sea and famous waves, Margaret had spent endless hours perfecting her surfing skills. But she had no idea that a fatal encounter with a predator would put her bravery and tenacity to the ultimate test. Margaret and her younger brother Jake decided to hit the waves one bright morning. They both loved to surf, and Owaiki Beach served as their hangout. The turquoise seas were bathed in a warm glow from the sun, which was high in the sky. The weather was ideal for catching waves and making priceless memories. Together, Margaret and Jake paddled out, their boards flowing effortlessly over the mild surf. As the saline breeze fluffed her blonde hair, Margaret surveyed the horizon for the ideal wave. She had no idea her carefree day in the sun would soon take a terrifying turn. As Margaret paddled into position, she felt excitement coursing through her veins. The waves at Owaiki Beach were known for their power and beauty. She reveled in every ride. She could feel the rhythm of the ocean beneath her, a connection to something larger than herself. However, a sudden, unanticipated force disrupted Margaret's happy moment while riding a particularly alluring wave. A black-tip reef shark rushed out of the water with lightning speed, its razor-sharp jaws choking on her arm. Her body screamed in pain and she felt terror rise. Jake, who was nearby, watched in horror as his sister was dragged under the water. He struggled to reach her while screaming for assistance as adrenaline pumped through his body. Beachgoers heard his calls and immediately called for help from the lifeguards. Margaret struggled with the pain of the shark bite below the water's surface. Her best chance of surviving lay in maintaining her composure, she knew. She worked incredibly hard to free her hurt arm from the shark's hold. The water was stained with blood, yet she kicked frantically to rise to the surface. The lifeguards sped to the scene, their jet skis slicing through the surf as they arrived. They created a safety bubble around Jake and Margaret, defending them from the shark's circling motion. They lifted Margaret onto a jet ski with delicacy and precision, her hurt arm aching with pain. With a worried and relieved expression on his face, Jake gripped her closely. As Margaret was injured, a group of dedicated medical specialists worked non-stop to treat her at the hospital. Although she had suffered severe injuries from the shark attack and had a protracted road to recovery, her spirit had not been affected. Despite the difficulties, she was adamant that she would resume her beloved activity. Over the next month, Margaret spent much time in physical therapy and rehab. Her arm started to heal and she began to feel better. Her family, friends, and the surfing world stuck by her every step of the way. They knew how much Margaret loved the ocean and trusted her to keep going. 2 months after the meeting changed her life, Margaret stood on Owaiki Beach again with her surfboard under her arm. The exhilaration and anxiety were mixed in her heart, but she knew she had to resist letting her fear rule her. She was desperate to regain the water because it had always been her haven. Margaret paddled out again as the light warmly began to glow on the horizon. The waves greeted her like they always had, and she was incredibly grateful to have the chance to surf them once more. She was reminded of why she first fell in love with surfing by the salty breeze, the pulsing waves, and the vast horizon. Margaret took strength and tenacity to return to the waves but succeeded. She understood that difficulties would always be part of life, but the ocean had shown her that she could face any difficulty head-on if she had grit and steadfast spirit. As she paddled the waves that had previously been the scene of her terrifying ordeal, she felt a tremendous sense of liberty and a newfound connection to the ocean that had always been her true home. Margaret's strength and self-assurance increased as the months went by. Her tenacity served as an example for others, a reminder of the human spirit's indomitable nature. She developed into a champion for shark conservation, utilizing her knowledge to spread the word about the value of coexisting peacefully with these magnificent animals. In addition to doing it for the excitement, Margaret continued chasing the waves to remember the ocean that had given her so much. Her adventure served as a monument to the strength of perseverance and the unbreakable relationship that exists between a surfer and the vast, unpredictably changing underwater world. It was a narrative of survival, bravery, and abiding love for the sea that would be passed down through the generations. Mia Martin traveled from California to South Africa's untamed coastline to compete in one of the most famous surf competitions in the world. The occasion occurred in Safor Bay, notorious for its long, beautiful waves, and in the middle of the shark region. As a professional surfer, Mia was well aware of the dangers associated with her sport, but she had never experienced anything comparable to what was about to happen. It was now time for the final round, and Mia was competing against some of the most well-known surfers in the world. The low-lying sun gave the vast azure ocean a golden color. Cameras were set to record the exciting action. Attendees lined the shore. The stress was evident because it was the peak of her professional life. As Mia paddled into position, anticipating the ideal wave, her heart raced. The waves in Safor Bay are renowned for their clean, strong breaks, and today was no exception. Mia skillfully rode the strong swell with grace and accuracy as a set wave came in. Her movements through the waves were measured and graceful, and the cheers from the audience resounded in her ears. The untamed energy of the water unexpectedly manifested itself among the heat of the competition. A massive, great white shark sprang from the ocean with a thunderous boom, briefly taking everyone's breath away. Its enormous bulk rose majestically against the backdrop of the setting sun, a sight both awe-inspiring and scary. The audience watched in astonishment as the monster submerged into the depths with a loud splash. After the awe-inspiring encounter, a hushed silence settled over the competition. The great white shark's power and primal beauty momentarily eclipsed the rivalry. Adrenaline-pumped surfers and spectators alike couldn't help but marvel at the untamed majesty of the ocean, a reminder that nature's mysteries were boundless and humbling. The other surfers quickly paddled for land as panic rippled through the ocean. Even though Mia moved her board toward safety, it was too late. With its dark eyes fixed on her with a terrifying intensity, the great white had locked onto her. She was alone on her board with the dangerous creature circling her in a couple of seconds. Mia felt her heart tighten with fear, but knew that rash action would only worsen things. Her thoughts racing, she attempted to remember all she had ever learned about encounters with sharks. She had heard that keeping your cool under pressure was essential, and that jerky movements could set off an attack. She was unable to succumb to her terror. The great white shark kept making slow, methodical circles around her as its dorsal fin sliced through the water's surface like a dagger. The world watched and waited to see how this dreadful encounter would unfold. On the shore, a frantic scramble was in progress. Event planners issued a warning advising attendees to leave the area and seek safety. A media frenzy was developing due to the breaking news, which had already spread like wildfire. Helicopters were buzzing overhead to record the action as it developed. As their boats raced through the water, experts and shark trackers sped to the site. They had one objective: protecting Mia and guarding the great white from damage. They were aware that it was a very crucial moment. They showed dedication to the surfer and the shark by maintaining a precarious balance. Mia returned to the water and tried to keep as motionless as she could, her heart racing. A little tug on her leg reminded her she was not alone in this aquatic environment. The initial confusion caused a slight injury dripping with blood, drawing the shark's attention. Mia's senses sharpened, and her attention sharpened. She was instructed on making her motions as unthreatening as possible by the specialists and trackers, whose voices were soothing and comforting. Even though the situation was uncomfortable, Mia had some hope thanks to everyone's combined experience. Mia's muscles ached, and her mind raced with fear and tenacity as each minute passed. Despite its intimidating presence, the great white shark appeared to lose interest as its circles grew broader and disappeared beneath the water. The tension in the water started to loosen, and a sigh of relief could be heard from everyone. Mia's shaky legs gave way as she walked onto firm ground and was securely led to shore. A rush of medical personnel and reporters greeted her, anxious to hear her terrifying story. She had some minor wounds, but they were a little price to pay for her life. Mia's tale captured the world's attention after that. It was evidence of the ocean's irrationality and the human spirit's tenacity. The majestic and terrifying great white shark had returned to its domain, reminding us that predators and prey must cohabit in the aquatic environment. Mia couldn't help but think back on the incredible events that had taken place as she was treated for her injuries and got medical attention. She had overcome her worst anxieties and come out the other side with a fresh understanding of how delicately the relationship between people and the untamed elements of the ocean. It is a narrative of survival, bravery, and the unbreakable relationship between humans and the underwater world. The immense coral reef's seemingly limitless width sparkled in a golden glow as the sun dipped low over the ocean's surface. A brave American surfer, Alex Brad, had traveled to Australia for the ideal wave. He had traveled to this far-flung planet region, where the waves were famed for their beauty and strength and the sporadic appearance of sharks. The waves were spectacular on this day, and Alex seemed at ease. He could feel the exhilaration of the ocean pulsing through him with each stroke. Under him, the transparent water revealed a fascinating world of alive coral and aquatic life. Although he knew the dangers of surfing in these shark-infested seas, the barrier reef's attraction was too much to ignore. His heart leaped with excitement as he surfed the peak of that enormous wave, experiencing a joy that only surfers could fully grasp. He had no idea that his life was precariously close to a terrifying cliff. A massive shadow that swallowed the dazzling sunshine appeared beneath him in a split second. Before his frantic mind could respond, a giant white shark of enormous shape burst from the water, its opening mouth inches from his dangling legs. In that breathtaking instant, time seemed to go on forever. As the surfer met the elemental power of nature, his adrenaline-fueled elation turned to utter horror. His heart beat like a drum of survival in his chest. It was a profound meeting with the apex predator that served as a reminder that anything may happen in the great ocean, even the most exhilarating adventures. Alex kicked his board towards the beast out of instinct rather than thinking, narrowly avoiding its deadly fangs. The impact knocked him into the water, but he quickly climbed back onto his board. Although the predator had given him a tenuous reprieve, it continued to circle him, its icy black eyes fixed on him as possible food. Alex realized he had to move quickly. He looked around him with shaking hands. Long shadows were cast over the ocean as the sun crept closer to the horizon. He needed to take charge of his survival because he couldn't rely solely on rescue. His sole tool and lifeline, he realized as he turned to look at his surfboard. Gnashing his teeth, Alex took the leash off the surfboard and started paddling hard in the opposite direction of the ominous shark. Each stroke caused his heart to accelerate and his muscles to burn from the effort. The seconds turned into minutes, but the shark kept following him, never veering off. Exhaustion began to chop at Alex's determination as the afternoon sun turned into a moonlit sky. He realized that he couldn't keep paddling continuously. His resolve was strengthened by desperation, and he came up with a strategy. He made a temporary shelter as a barrier between himself and the approaching predator by fastening a leash cord to the board's nose. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a tiny waterproof flashlight with a shaking hand. Once he turned it on, a weak beam was cast into the deep ocean. The shark's silhouette was still oddly close, a terrifying reminder of the danger lurking below. Hour after hour went by during this tense standoff. The pain in Alex's body and his state of fatigue in his thoughts were both palpable. He had to use all his effort to maintain his composure as he battled terror and panic. He muttered encouraging words to himself, vowing not to become another victim of the ocean's relentless hold. Someone captured his signal of the beam light from the shore. The coastal rescuers rushed to his location as soon as they realized his dreadful situation. A group of skilled maritime professionals was rescuing him. They raced against the clock and the persistent predator because they knew they were running out of time. Back on the water, Alex could see that his flashlight's batteries were running low. As night fell, panic threatened to engulf him. He strained his ears to hear any sounds of the coming rescue squad as he listened closely. Just when hope seemed lost, he heard the distant hum of an engine. As the rescue boat came into view, its strong searchlights piercing through the night, a wave of relief washed over him. Alex's weak glow was visible in the distance, and the rescue team hurried toward it. The shark made one more frightening pass before slipping into the depths as it sensed impending danger. Alex was dragged aboard by the crew, his body quivering from tiredness and his face turning pale. He had made it through the horrific experience, and the hours-long pressure of fear gradually dissipated. He knew he owed his life to their prompt arrival, the comfort of the boat's cabin, and their soothing remarks. Alex found himself thinking about the terrifying ordeal as they returned to land. He witnessed the vast coral reef's unyielding violence and fantastic beauty. He had gazed into the abyss, confronted his worst fears, and come out on top. But the experience with the unrelenting great white shark had changed him irrevocably. In the end, Alex's trip to the vast coral reef taught him about the strength of the human spirit and the power of nature. The experience left him with a newfound respect for the ocean's mysteries and a deeper understanding of the delicate balance between man and nature in the vast, amazing world under the waves. He had surfed the most dangerous waters, survived the most terrifying encounter, and overcame the ordeal with these lessons. It was a magnificent day at Hamilton Beach in South Carolina, where the white sands extended as far as the eye could see and were gently caressed by the Atlantic surf. The sky was a dazzling blue without a cloud in sight, and the sun cast a warm, inviting glow along the shoreline. Hamilton Beach was humming with the chatter and laughter of beachgoers on this idyllic day. Families had set up bright beach umbrellas and towels, and their kids played and made sandcastles close to the water. Along the water's edge, couples strolled hand in hand, their footprints leaving brief traces in the sand. The lingering aroma of sunscreen served as a reminder of the sun's inviting warmth. A 30-year-old surfer with sun-kissed hair and a year-round tan named Jacob Moore stood out in this gorgeous scenario. The beach was more than simply a place to go for Jacob. It was his calling. He believed that his life's work was to ride the waves, synchronize with the rhythm of the ocean, and find peace in the rising and falling of the tides. Like so many previous days, Jacob went to the beach today with only one intention: to surf the day away. He had honed his abilities for countless hours, becoming sensitive to the subtleties of the ocean. He saw every wave as a chance to connect with the vast blue expanse, and every ride as an opportunity. A feeling of excitement overcame him as he dived into the sea. The waves called out to you with hypnotic rhythms and whispered exploration promises. A trusted vehicle for the road ahead, Jacob's board glided alongside him. He felt a strong sense of belonging as he looked toward the horizon, where the turquoise waters and the limitless sky blended. Jacob paddled out through the crashing waves with a strong push, salt water spraying in his face. He stopped, sat on his board, and looked through the swells for the ideal wave. There was more to it than just the rush. There was a connection and a dance between the surfer and the sea. However, destiny had something else in store for Jacob on this seemingly wonderful day. A sharp pain suddenly jolted through his thigh as he caught a promising wave and started to ride it gracefully and expertly. He was in excruciating pain when he peered down and saw a black-nosed shark holding onto his limb. Jacob felt fearful but understood that the key was to remain composed. With a sudden outpouring of strength, he could wrench his leg out of the shark's hold, his blood mixing with the water. He experienced shock and fear, but his instincts as a surfer took over. He was aware that he needed to reach land as soon as possible. In the middle of this nightmare, all the beachgoers who had been having a good time suddenly started screaming and yelling for help as they ran to the water's edge. It was like a wave of panic went through Hilton Beach. Jacob's resolve was unshakable as he struggled through discomfort and shock and pushed himself toward the shore. The faraway shoreline became closer with each stroke as his heart raced. He knew the next 500 meters would be rugged, but his unwavering spirit enabled him to finish the distance. Jacob remained firm despite his bouncing breath and searing muscles. He was even more fierce in the struggle against the icy, unrelenting waters. He overcame nature's obstacles with each stroke, demonstrating that the human spirit could overcome difficulty one resolute stroke at a time. When Jacob finally managed to drag himself onto the sand, his bruised leg was bloody and torn. He was immediately assisted by a nearby paramedic who had been having a great time at the beach. The paramedic's skillful hands put a tourniquet on Jacob's leg to stop the bleeding and provide life-saving first aid. Jacob was placed on the stretcher as the ambulance arrived quickly and the siren blared. The crowd watched in astonishment and awe as Jacob was taken away. Even though his life was in danger, he had a chance to fight back thanks to his bravery and the paramedics' rapid response. Hemiton Beach's audience experienced shock due to the news of the shark attack's news spreading like wildfire. The incident resulted in the closure of the beach to the public and the strict monitoring of the waters by coastal officials. Before reopening Hemiton Beach to tourists, they ensured the area was secure. Jacob started his long and grueling road to recovery after being placed under the hospital's care. He had sustained severe wounds from the shark bite that required extended medical care and therapy. As he faced the challenges ahead, his friends and family came together to surround him and provide unshakable support. In due course, Hemiton Beach once more welcomed surfers and beachgoers, but with a greater feeling of prudence and awe for the force of the ocean. Jacob's tale always served as a sobering reminder of the human spirit's perseverance and the sea's unpredictability. Jacob's courage and perseverance emerged through months of physical therapy and rehabilitation. Despite his terrifying experience with the black-nosed shark, he remained unafraid and refused to let it define him. His return to surfing was an act of bravery and proof of the unbreakable connection between a surfer and the vast, unpredictably undersea world under the ocean. His narrative would live on and serve as a reminder that despite hardship, the human spirit can triumph, and that the ocean can heal even the deepest wounds.